Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Bonnie, and this is pure commentary. We are going to discuss Kenya's debt, and we are going to state the figures around it, how much we've taken so far, how much the purported payment that is claimed to have been paid by the government, and how much like we think we owe them, we owe the lenders and everything, and also where there is possible corruption. So we are going to discuss all that in this video. So stay tuned up to the end, because here I know we will take our understanding a bit to the next level, because it is very ridiculous, guys. When you see these figures and you wonder, are these leaders really for the people, or are they only for themselves? So stay tuned, welcome, sit back, relax, and enjoy, guys. We are going to discuss the aspect of odious debt. So what is odious debt in Kenya? So odious debt that has been taken in this country, it refers to a debt that was taken by people on behalf of the Kenyan people, and it did not come to Kenya. So according to the Kenyan laws, external debts must only be taken for development projects. For example, to build highways, maybe a railway project, maybe a fisheries, maybe something like to develop a dam, like for development, purely purpose for development. But when you see what has been happening, is that there has been something like fraud, stealing of public funds. So when they have finished like doing corruption inside the country, now they've gone for debt. And let me use this example to explain so that you may understand the context. Imagine you have a car or a vehicle, and that vehicle, of course, has a logbook. Okay. So imagine somebody taking that logbook, which is not you now. The car is yours, the logbook is yours. Another person taking that logbook and going to take a loan with it. But now, and using that loan for their own benefits, it did not come to you, and you don't understand. You don't know. Only for the banks to come later and ask you for the loan amount that you have to pay. Number one, you don't know who took the loan. Number two, it did not even help you, that loan. So in this Kenyan context, of course, we know who took the loan, but the loan did not help the Kenyan people. That's the simplest way I can explain the debt that has been consistently taken by the Kenyan government on behalf of the Kenyan people, but not for the benefit of the Kenyan people. So when they go there, for example, when they go for the IMF or the World Bank to take the loan, they say that we are going to fund these projects and this and this and this. But now on ground, things are different. It's not the way they explain it over there. And I have come to learn that it is the sole purpose or duty of those lenders to do something called due diligence, to come to the ground, follow the constitution, and see on what situations are the loans only allowed to be taken. For example, which in this case, our constitution says we should take loans for projects. That's number one. Number two, they should also come and verify that actually those projects are there. Yeah. Now it is their responsibility to take due diligence. But now, what has come out is that most of these lenders, they don't do that, because they are only there to make profits, and they are colluding with these politicians. Of course, these are politicians. And allow me to say something. Whenever they say Kenyan politicians are leaders, I don't accept, because a leader is somebody who is cool, somebody who is doing the right thing for the people, and somebody who doesn't steal. But what we are seeing in our politicians, first of all, they lie to get votes. Number two, they don't fulfill their promises. So you can't call that person a leader. Those are politicians. Now, let's go fast forward. So Jimmy Wanjiki has been very vocal in explaining this odious debt. And he has revealed that. So we have to believe him, because he was one of those people. He used to do business with the government. And they double deal him on the issue of SGR, the Standard Railway that was running from Mombasa it was supposed to go to Malaba initially, but now it came to Nairobi. So he said that, Jimmy Wanjiki said that they were to service that, they were to do that at 60 billion Kenya shillings. They were to do that, they were to do the project at 60 billion Kenya shillings from Mombasa to Malaba, which is around 1,000 kilometers. So 60 billion for 1,000 kilometers, which means 60 million for every kilometer. That was now the SDR. But now what the regime came and did is that they multiplied that amount for almost 7 times. That's around 400 billion Kenya shillings. And then they did halfway, which is now from Mombasa to Nairobi. That's very ridiculous. Yeah, so you can imagine the amount of money that was stolen in there. So that's number one. And the project was supposed to be done purely on public-private partnership, which means there could not have been any debt on that. But now what the regime came and do, which is the Uhuru and Ruto government, what they did is that they took Chinese loan, and now they are servicing that loan. So again, the baggage was transferred to the Kenyan people. So now, going by the figures of Jimmy Wanjiki, the debt that we have a country is around 11 trillion. Half of it is internal debt, domestic debt, which the government takes from banks, or the debt which people are buying treasury bonds and bills. Remember, as a Kenyan citizen, you can lend money to the government in form of treasury bills and bonds, and then it matures after a certain period. For example, let's say 3 months or monthly, or so there is an agreement on that. So that's part of the internal debt taken from the people. That's number one. Number two, taken from the banks. And the interest rate is always ridiculous. It's about 18%. So what has been happening is that they've been taking debt from internal sources, which is now banks, and from the people. That's number one. Number two, they've been taking it from international sources. For example, the London Club. The London Club is the one that gave us the Eurobond. There is now the Africa Development Bank. That's number two. Number three, there is the UN Bank, which is now the IMF. There is the World Bank. There is the Chinese loans. And there is some loans from Saudi Arabia and probably from the United States. So those 7 sources compose external debt, which is now total about 5.5 trillion Kenya shillings. So you'll transfer that to, it's around, I think it's around $50 billion. Roughly $50 billion. So you'll do your own maths. So half of it is from external loans, half of it is internal loans. And when you see those figures, that's a very big amount of money, which is 11 trillion. I told you it's almost the size of the amount of Kenya's GDP. So let me see Kenya's GDP here, and GDP, yeah, which is 13. It's actually $13 billion. No, not 13, but $110 billion. Actually, they are almost the same amount. So the loan is close to 90% of the GDP. And as you have heard, 70% of taxes collected in the country call for those loans, call for the repayment of those loans. And now, the main reason I'm making this video is to understand that most of these loans, they have not funded any projects. That's number one. Number two, it is not the responsibility of the Kenyan taxpayer to pay them. That's actually the main reason, and that's why it's called ODIOUS debt. It did not go to fund any development project. Okay, some of very small percentage of it. For example, the SGR one, the one that was used to build the SGR from Mombasa to Nairobi and then to somewhere in Naivasha, the railway to nowhere. It was called the railway to nowhere because actually it ended in some bush somewhere, a land somewhere that it did not end in the city or maybe in an urban area or something. It just ended in somewhere in the wilderness. That's why it's called railway to nowhere, from Nairobi to Naivasha. Yeah. So it is called ODIOUS debt. And this debt, it is purportedly say that 8 trillion has been paid. But now the magic about it is that it has been increasing. So the debt has been increasing, yet around 8 trillion, 7 to 8 trillion of it has been paid. Which also means that there is possibility that this money, the payment now also has been stolen. So maybe these people could have been, of course they have stolen the, it's called embezzled. They've embezzled the loans, and now they are embezzling the money used to pay, because actually it's a whole scheme of too much proportions. Now, 5.5 external debt, 5.5 trillion internal debt. Now, being ODIOUS means that now it did not, since it was taken on behalf of the Kenyan people and it did not help the Kenyan people, then it is not the responsibility of the Kenyan people to pay that debt. And now, as per Jimmy Wanjiki, the way he explains is that first of all, he has explained it in various uh, contexts. For example, he has gone to System TV, to Lean Googie Show, the LNN show. He has explained it to on Wicked Edition, that is to Dr. Kingori. He has explained it in Spice FM, all these radio stations. He has been called everywhere, other interviews, explaining it, and it has been very clear. The explanation has been very clear that actually the debt did not help since it did not since it did not help the Kenyan people. It is now called ODIOUS. That's actually the meaning of ODIOUS. And now, what can we do as the Kenyan people? It is not our responsibility to pay that debt. And there are two contexts whereby the citizens and the non-governmental organizations, that's the humanitarian groups that are outside the government, that are maybe funded privately, which is non-profit organizations. There are two organizations whereby there are two situations whereby those organizations have come up together with the people and decided to launch court cases in the constitutional courts to make sure that those people who took the debts, first of all, the citizens do not pay that debt, and the second one, the people who took those debts because they followed the accounts that those money went, should pay that debt. That's their responsibility. It's not the responsibility of the Kenyan citizen. And that one happened in Mozambique, whereby in Mozambique, I think around $2 billion, it's around $2 billion was taken on behalf of the Mozambican people. And it was a very huge scheme involving the son of the prime minister and some external, of course, some politicians and everything. It was taken on behalf of the Mozambican people, and that debt resulted in a huge economic crisis in Mozambique. It led to the falling in value of the Mozambique currency by half. Like when traded against the dollar, it fell by half. And it was a very huge crisis that those people actually are coming out from, because it's something that started in way back in 2015, 2016. It's now ending. So it's been years of pain because the economy has been low and everything. But now, when they launched this people's initiative, it was finally declared that actually that debt did not, since it did not help the Mozambican people, it is odious, and therefore the country will not pay it, and people who took the money are responsible for that. So that's case number one. The case number two is the one in Malaysia, whereby also Malaysian, let me see, let me confirm the figures. Malaysian odious debt amount. Yeah, my PC is here. It's around $6.5 billion. Yeah, so it's about $6.5 billion. That's around 800 billion, close to 1 trillion Kenya shillings. So that's a lot of money. So it was stolen. There was a businessman called Jolo, somebody like that. Yeah, the prime minister was there, and it was a whole scheme. And now what happened is that this money from lenders, it was transferred directly to the banks of these people in the Middle East, others in the US, and they shared the loot with this politician, the prime minister, this businessman called Jolo, and some people are in jail. The prime minister is in jail. This Jolo also is facing those things in the courts. So that's how now and now when a case was launched by the Mozambican people, with the help of pressure groups and all of you, NGOs and what have you, it was declared that it was odious, and now it was not the responsibility of the Malaysian people to pay that debt. So now, since we have, in law, they always have cases whereby they have previous examples. Let me use the simple term examples, whereby they can say this thing was applied here. It can as well be applied in our context because the situations are the same. So it can also be applied in Kenya. And when it's applied in Kenya, Kenya will be free of debt. It will be free of debt. And Jimmy Wanjiki and the likes are following up on that. And we, the citizens, are ready to help. Yeah, we can contribute 10 shillings, 5 shillings for those cases to be pushed. And the Kenyan people will in the end be free. So let me give you another example to explain to you that actually the debt that was taken was not necessary. Number one, the project that was funded, as I told you, was the SGR, and it was to be done between the it was a public-private partnership project, PPP. So now the government decided to go for the debts, which means actually they took it out of their own will. It was not a must. So and that's actually the only debt that can be seen that it was borrowed and it did something. Although a large portion of that money was embezzled, but actually it did something. Yeah. So it was not necessary for that debt to be taken. In the 10 years between 2013 and 2022, during the Uhuru Ruto regime, the total expenditures was about 14.6 trillion Kenya shillings, and the total amount of money that was available to pay for those the income, the total revenues was about 13.4 trillion Kenya shillings, which means 1.2 trillion was the only amount of money that was supposed to be borrowed to help in bridging the budget deficits and helping in those development projects that there was no enough amount of money to fund. And now these people, instead of 1.2 trillion shillings, they decided to borrow 11, which means now if proper audits are done and the cases are taken to constitutional courts and everything, Kenya is only responsible to pay for 1.2 trillion Kenya shillings, which has already been paid anyway.
What did we spend? Because we've done the figures. From 2013 July all the way to 2023 June, 10 years. What were our expenses? So you take development, 6 trillion. You take our counties, over 3 trillion something. You take our salaries. You take our operations, all operations, so the police have petrol in their cars and so on. You take pension. You put them in a column and just do the math. All right? It comes to 14.6 trillion. Then you look at tax revenue. How much, Lynn, with all your hard work, did you pay to this man called KRA? Zakayo. So you put it here like a column here, and you just do the math. Yes. Actuals. Not speculate estimates. Actuals. 13.3. 10 years. When you look, you do what is called minus. 14.6, 13.3. Yes. You have a shortage, which is called a deficit of 1.3 trillion. Right? If we were to borrow so that we can manage all our expenses, that is all we needed to borrow. In 10 years, Lynn, I want you to understand this.
In 10 years?
In 10 years.
Because they've been
that
paying
means
around 10 trillion.
That really
can be paid by, I don't know, because those are the people who take the money. It will not come with Kenyan people. So thank you so much, guys. I was actually trying to explain the whole issue around the ODIOUS debt as per my own observation and how I've been following up on this issue. And I hope truth will come up one day when the courts are launched and everything. The Kenyan people will be free of these debts, because actually these debts are there to enslave the Kenyan people. I heard that these international institutions, monetary institutions, they give you debt that you cannot pay, so that they take your strategic resources as collateral, so that if you fail to pay, they take these resources. For example, they take these resources, for example, your minerals, natural resources and everything, ports and everything. So you remain poor forever. Actually, that is very bad. It keeps poor countries poorer and poorer and poorer. So actually, it is serious. So let me know what you think about this video. I'll be making more and more commentary videos like this, and I know we'll be discussing. So thank you so much, guys. Be blessed. Bye bye.